Things that are still a problem for you are things that are not seen as important enough for you to put enough effort into solving it. I really like this idea here. You know, don't you just hate it when a problem just keeps persisting in your life and you're like, oh, here we go again? You know, for me, it's like my bedtimes, and also my wake up times, of course, because they intermingle with each other. It's like, oh, here we go again, waking up late, or oh, here we go again, going to bed too late. Or what about for you? What is it for you? Here we go again, procrastinating. Here we go again, scrolling on YouTube or TikTok or YouTube Shorts, into the rabbit hole again. And next thing you know, you come out like just dopamine fried. And when it really comes to solving our own problems in reality, we actually have to blow it up more in our minds, we have to make it more of a problem than it currently is, than it currently manifests, to actually take it seriously enough to take some serious action. Have you noticed this? I found this extremely interesting. And one really key example is, with quitting an addiction, such as smoking. Have you noticed that quitting an addiction such as smoking, right? It's one of those addictions that it's a slow death. It's going to creep up on you as the years pile up of you smoking more and more, right? And you kind of got to visualize what is your life going to look like? Maybe you're already seeing some of the problems that smoking is causing you, but it's not bad enough yet. There's a story of a dog sitting on a nail. I'll get back to the smoking thing. There's a story of a dog sitting on a nail. And this dog is clearly suffering and it's whimpering. And there's a man that walks by, asking the other man that's kind of just chilling there beside the dog, and I'm like, yo, what's wrong with that dog? It's like, oh, it's sitting on a nail. Like, what? It's like, yep. It does that. It's like, well, why doesn't it move? It's clearly in pain. He's clearly hurting. And the man replies, yeah, he's hurting, but he's not hurting enough to move off that nail. And isn't that the case for so many problems in our lives where we are not hurting enough? This is where, I want to bring in this smoking analogy. So one way to quit smoking, or really any addiction, is you kind of want to close your eyes and you want to visualize, how would you feel if you kept on this habit for 5 years? What kind of hell would you be creating? And then I want you to imagine the opposite. How would you be? How would you feel? How would you manifest if you stopped doing this negative behavior? If you stopped participating in this vice? And you can even stretch it out to the next 10 years, to the next 15 years, 20, 30, 40 years. Because really, every decision in life is going to make that little 3-degree trajectory that's going to make you hundreds of miles apart in the long run, 40 years down the line. How much suffering would you negate for yourself if you just fixed this problem for yourself right now if you just nipped it in the butt. You see, what's really interesting is that a lot of people have small problems, right? But they have like a whole whack of them. But the thing is that to actually deconstruct one, they're just going to fill it in with another problem. So really, these problems are actually bigger than we realize. They are dragons that seem to start out small, but then they grow. And they grow and grow and grow until it's consumed our entire lives. And so you have to see how the current dragons in your life are going to grow. And you want to have the wisdom to be able to slay your dragons when they are still small, when they're still easy. Because, for example, if you're having a hard time with your YouTube addiction, or your, a little bit too much cigarettes or weed or video games or pornography or whatever vice it is for you, alcohol, if you're having just a little bit, too much where it's no longer healthy, it's a net negative, or the net positive is so low, it's like, why? Why do I even bother? Is this really worth my investment of my time, my money, my life, my character, how it impacts my character, and my identity, and how this identity that I am creating, is that going to be an identity that I really want to have and show people? As someone that's really into self-improvement, I actually get excited when I can find a small thing and I can actually really pinpoint and identify it. For me, this has been a decade-long addiction with my phone, for example. And for me, it came to the point where I actually bought a second phone, because if that means I could just eliminate that one addiction by creating that very physical boundary, because I always like to have YouTube downloaded, but I do not like to have it, always in my pocket. It's like a crack pipe that's ready to smoke. A freshly baked cookie, fresh out of the oven, still soft and warm and smells good. Fresh dopamine hit, right? That's what having YouTube in my pocket is. And so it was worth it for me to just nip it in the butt like that, solve the problem like that. There's an art to solving problems permanently. Have you noticed this? You can make a problem go away for a while, but to actually pick up identities to put in place for yourself and create routines, and to create vows and new belief systems, and to let go of all your vices, sell off all the materials, or just throw it out. That takes a change in the character and identity, in killing on part of yourself. You're killing your old self in order for your new self to walk into the room. And if you're still struggling with something as silly as getting to bed on time, right? Or not being able to follow a schedule, or not being able to wake up on time, or with a YouTube addiction and you're scrolling endlessly, it may be a bigger problem than you think if it's constantly persisting every single day. It may not seem like a big problem because it's not like methamphetamine or heroin. Those, if you have an addiction to heroin, that's a very obvious problem. But I would say the even more trickier ones that people struggle with more, of course, heroin is its own class of addiction. But for most people that are not doing extremely dangerous and hard drugs, for most people, it's the things like the phones, where it's not even seen as an addiction. That's where it's really insidious, because we see everyone else around us addicted to it. And it is not collectively seen as a problem as, for example, heroin is. And that's where it's really tricky. And you have to take your own authority into the matter of the circumstances and realize, like, yeah, I am not getting the results I want. I am losing hours in my day. I'm getting a net negative result from this activity or vice or whatever. And I can't seem to stop. I can't seem to stop going to bed too late. I can't seem to stop, sleeping in. I can't seem to stop scrolling on my phone. I can't seem to stop smoking weed. I can't seem to stop whatever addiction. Addiction fundamentally is a feeling of a loss of control over your behavior. And that's a really dangerous place to be, because behavior really is the only thing we can control. So when you get into a place where you're so wired to be powerless, and you still just see it as a small thing, and it still persists, you massively underestimate just how big of a problem it actually is in your life. And a lot of times we're just so saturated in our bias and in our perspective that a lot of times we can just straight up miss out on seeing just how bad it is. Think about it this way. Think about if you have overcome some addictions, and this was like 7 years ago. Imagine watching like security camera footage of you going through your day of like who you were 7 years ago, and how you would kind of just be like pulling your hair out, looking at yourself, being like, oh my God, like this guy, he's partaking in all these vices, and he doesn't realize just how much it's damaging him and how little it adds to his life and actually how much it takes away from his life. You see, like, for example, like a thing like alcohol. You can develop a perception where alcohol is just like completely like the dumbest thing ever. When other people are like, yeah, I do alcohol, I drink alcohol, and yeah, sometimes I drink too much, and like it gets negative, and I'm in an unsafe situation, and yeah, sometimes on New Year's I got so drunk I blacked out or whatever. It's like, to like a person with a completely different perception, it's like, what the fuck? So how bad something is really a matter of perception. You can even say, like, if your body isn't really physically fit, then, and especially if you're just a little bit overweight even, you have a lot more to go, you have a lot more path to go through than you even knew. If you're struggling to drop that last 10 pounds, or struggling to drop that 20 pounds or 30 pounds you need to lose, and you're still like, you're just, you might lose some, you get on some intermittent fasting, and then you lose some weight, and then, but you gain it back, and then you lose some weight, and then you gain it back, lose some weight, gain it back, and there's no real fundamental change of how you even live your entire life. We're coming back right to the art of solving problems permanently, right? If you still have the problem persisting, even in small ways, you still haven't mastered that part of your life yet. You still haven't put enough thought, contemplation, experimentation, effort, and just will. You haven't built enough of a reality as to why this is important. Perhaps you need to write down 100 reasons why you need to organize your life such in a way that you can get this done. Like for me, yeah, getting to bed on time. I gotta actually construct a bigger picture in my mind as to how that makes my life perfect. Where to the point where if I miss even 15 minutes, where it's that high of a standard, if I miss 10 minutes of sleep, if I'm 10 minutes off, then everything's fucked. And that's not necessarily to give me a license such that I can, if I sabotage myself by 10 minutes, that I can fuck off the rest of the day and not be productive because, I didn't get whatever, or an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, or I'm on 3 hours of sleep, right? I'm still going to try and do my best. But what I've noticed is that, I actually haven't solved this problem, and I've been annoyed at it. It's not like a pain, like I'm going through heroin withdrawals, but I've been annoyed at this problem that I've had. And I realized, I just haven't been putting enough thought around it to actually solve it permanently. So think about that next time you have some annoyances in things that you didn't follow up on, in ways that you missed, in ways that you're disappointed with yourself, and you're how can I develop a character and a belief system and an organization system, and what do I have to let go of, and what part of myself do I have to kill to actually solve that permanently such that that doesn't happen again. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Hopefully this has given you some insight. And with that, I would like to thank you for watching. And I will see you in the next one.